7:14 on a Monday. That puts Mike Sisk at mic number 2. We want to welcome to microphone number 3, Judge Jason Duffy out of Marion County. And welcome, Judge.
Thank you, Dale, for having me. I'm proud to be here.
Well, it's nice to have you. He's co-hosting today, and of course, he's candidate. Tell us what you're candidate for again.
I'm a candidate for District Court Judge in Baxter and Marion County in a non-partisan election to be held March 1st of next year.
And we brought him in to co-host a little bit, get his feet wet in radio a little bit, because you'll be hearing more from him as months go by. And it's good to join the conversation. Of course, Mike is here from Mmmm Mechanic.
Hey, Dale.
What do we want to talk about today?
Whatever you name it, dealer's choice.
Well, cooler weather and stuff like that. So let's start with brakes.
Okay.
Brake maintenance.
We've been doing a lot of brakes up at the shop here lately. You know, brakes are one of those things. I don't know that cold weather has a whole lot to do with brake wear or anything like that. The more a car sits, the more chances are they're going to make noise. We've had a lot of that going on, where people that don't drive very much, and they'll let their car sit for 3 or 4 days, and then they back it out of the garage, and they make a little squeak for the first 3 or 4 stops, and things like that.
Break the rust.
Yeah, we got to break through the surface rust and get rid of it, and then everything's back to normal.
Well, here's what I'm thinking. You know, this time of year, look at today. It'd probably be 79, 80 degrees. It's 54 right now. And when you have such a vast array of temperatures like this, we have a little bit more rain pattern. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm thinking. You know, make sure the brakes are ready to hit in case we get in a heavy rain.
Yeah, you know, of course, everybody knows that brakes are probably the most important safety system on the car. And brakes are another one of those things that the wear and tear on brakes get away from us. Yeah. You know, we drive in a lot of people in town where it's stop, it's go all the time. And, of course, you know, where we live, you're going up a hill or down a hill. And we use brakes pretty hard in this area, it seems like. And, of course, all the cars that are made now, they got disc brakes in the front. And the disc brakes, most of those will have a squealer, a warning device that lets you know when the pads are worn out. You'll get this squeal going on. And it's distinctive, and you'll hear it. And
clear your sinuses is what it'll
do. Some of them get pretty darn loud. And that's telling you it's time right now to get some brake work done when you hear that squeal. Now, there's another, you know, sometimes when you're pulling up at the drive up at McDonald's, or you're pulling up in line at school to pick the kids up, and you hear some squeaks, that's not the brake squealer. You'll know that there's definitely going to be a difference. And a lot of times disc brakes just make a little bit of noise. They do. And that doesn't mean there's anything wrong. You know, we deal with that on a daily basis up at the shop. And, you know, of course, then you get into stuff where you're out on the road and you're 55, 60 miles an hour, and you hit the brakes and you get a little shake or a flutter that you feel. Most generally, not always, but most generally you feel it like in the steering wheel. So it's on the front brake rotors have become warped. That's another problem. That doesn't necessarily
hot and cold.
Yeah.
Yep.
That doesn't necessarily mean the brake pads are worn out or anything like that. It just means that the discs that the brakes clamp down onto, they either need to be replaced or they need to be machined and flattened back out. And you know, we do all of those things. Sure. And you know, the rear brakes on these cars, most of them now are disc brakes. Almost everything is a disc brake.
Mine is,
yeah. Mm-hmm. And back in the day, we had so many cars with drum brakes, and we still see a few. And
I remember drum brakes on the front.
Oh, I do too. You know, back when I started doing this, drum brakes, especially on pickup trucks, we had a lot of them that came in up at Mmmm Mechanic that still had some drum brakes in the front. And man, it was an art to adjust and get drum brakes on the front right, because if you're off a little bit, it pulls, and it pulls noticeably.
Especially if you've had a little bit of wear in that tie rod end or idler arm, because it'd kick.
Yeah.
You know.
And there was a technique to adjusting those things, and you know as well as I do that the disassembly and reassembly of drum brakes many times can be a bit of a challenge.
Oh, they were a job. I mean, even we go back to the old days of the 57 Studebakers. Some of my old Chrysler products, you had to clean and repack the wheel bearing. I mean, you came out with wheel cylinder kits, sandpaper, hones, repack the bearings, grease seals. I mean, it was almost an all-day job for front brakes, especially when you get them in your driveway.
Right. And you know, again, we don't see that many drum brakes now, but we still see a few, and we do a lot of them. You know, we do all that stuff on drums as well, where you machine the drums. Mm-hmm. Replace the shoes.
Yeah,
And-
for us it was an all-day thing. I remember my dad would have to call my grandfather. You working Saturday? No, I got the day off. Well, can you take me to Belleville to take the drums into the machine shop?
Yeah.
So my grandfather stopped by about 8 in the morning. They'd run the drums to Belleville. Well, Dad put all the brake parts on the car and then went back in the afternoon and get the drums.
Having the right tools to stretch those springs and all that stuff helps a lot.
Yeah.
You know, if you're out there trying to do it with a pair of pliers and a screwdriver, you better have on some safety glasses for sure.
Oh, yeah. I've bounced a few springs off the
Yes.
truck lid.
I think everybody has that's done it that way.
Spring.
And,
Where's that spring? It's over by the swing set.
yeah, we almost exclusively use Wagner Thermoquiet brake pads in the front. And
Yeah, let me tell you about Wagner Thermoquiets. You see some of these vehicles with the fancy rims. When you use the Thermoquiet, your rims stay clean.
yes, they are. We've been using them for quite some time up at the shop, and I'm sure they have done some reformulation and they've made some changes in the 15 years or so it's been since we started using them. But they're the best brake pad out there. That I'm not going to say that there's nobody that makes one as good, but they are as good as anybody's and better than most. Especially
I
if
like
you
that my
want
wheels stay clean.
if you want quiet braking. You know, they're good about not squeaking.
Yeah.
They don't turn your wheels black, and the durability of them's pretty darn good. You know, I would venture to say they'll last, you know, as long as most of the factory formulations do, and longer than some of them. So yeah, we use Wagner Thermoquiets, and I don't mind pushing them for 1 second. We've had good results with them, and got 100% confidence in all that stuff.
Well, see, Wagner's last real good here because at Mountain Home, the stop signs are merely a suggestion anyway.
Yeah. Just a thought.
With the judge sitting right here.
Well, let me ask you a question. How long do the pads typically last? Because I bought a truck, and I bet you I put 110,000 miles on it before I changed the pads.
One of the biggest
Good driver.
influences on how long brake pads last is the person behind the wheel. And we've all followed people down the road, and the brake lights rarely go off. Those are the ones that are getting their brake rotors warped and their brake pads worn out. And I see people almost on a weekly basis with the same results you're having, 80, 90, 100,000 miles on their brakes, and they've still got some brake pad left. And usually that's people that are, you know, they're pretty easy on the brakes. You know, they slow down in advance. They don't run up on the stop signs. And they're not a rider. They don't ride the brakes all the way down the hill. And that's just a bad habit to be in. It overheats the brake pads. It overheats the rotors, everything else. Then we got warped rotors and worn out brake pads. And it's also a sign that you said a truck, right? Many of these trucks, man, the brakes anymore have just gotten huge. Big old
Yeah.
13, 14 inch,
What brand are you driving, Judge?
Dodge truck.
Yeah.
13, 14 inch diameter brake rotors, and the pads are big, and they hold up pretty good. I mean, they're heavy duty brakes on a lot of these trucks now.
Yeah.
Yeah, they really, really are. You remember back, like a Chevy truck, you know, back in the day of, say, 1980, they had the same brake setup on them as a Chevy Impala.
I was
As
going
a
to say
car.
Monte Carlo, yeah.
Yeah, Monte Carlo.
Yeah.
They had the same brake setup on them as these cars, passenger cars.
Well, that was 10.5 to 11-inch rotor, wasn't it?
Don't get me started lying, but I can tell you the brake pads and the wheel seals and all that stuff was the same.
Yeah.
Now you look at a half-ton truck, and like I say, 13, 14-inch diameter rotors,
Yeah,
big
yeah.
old brake pads, very sophisticated brake controls with ABS, traction control, all those things going on. And realistically, brake pads should last a long time on these modern vehicles. And if they're not, well, there's a problem. It could be an issue, a little bit of an issue in the brakes, or it's an issue in the person's foot on the brake pedal. But yeah, brakes have. Excuse me. People hear me saying it all the time about how these new cars have improved, and in my mind, brakes is one of the major areas where they've gotten better.
Yeah.
I mean,
agree
they
there.
stop.
Yeah.
They flat stop. I remember my dad and I was going over to Ray Valley to visit some relatives one time, and we're in his 75 Ford pickup, and a deer run across the road in front of us. And he jumps on the brakes, and I think we ended up looking back the way we came. The rear drum brakes locked up immediately. We spun around in the middle of
Really?
yeah.
Dry highway?
Yeah. I don't remember Lower Dale. That's 40-something years ago. But all I remember is us going around in the circle and looking back the way we came. And, modern cars, you can...
Well, now your anti-lock.
Yeah, your anti-lock brakes would have helped you with that,
Sure.
and all many. The tires are better, the suspension's better, the brakes are better, the technology's better, and you'd have had a straight ahead stop without a whole lot of drama.
Funny you say that because I look back, because I remember in the days when we'd be running 70, 75, and 80 miles an hour along Route 66 or I-40 or 44 out of St. Louis. You look at the old bias ply tires, the drum brakes. A lot of times the drum brakes didn't even have a booster on them.
Mm-hmm.
It was manual 4 wheels worth of drums, no anti-lock, no computer. And I'm thinking, wow,
Yep.
what kept us alive?
Yeah, and a steel dash waiting on
And
you.
a steel dash. And a lot of times no seat belts in the cars.
Yep.
In those days.
I know, man.
I
can't-
would stand up in the front seat.
Yep. I've rode a lot of miles standing up between my mom and dad
Yeah.
going down the road. I've also rode a lot of miles laying up under the back glass.
Yeah.
The car, and I'm trying to remember what it was. It seemed like it was an old Ford Galaxy or something along those lines. And it had a big old back glass
Yeah,
and a
yeah.
deck there. And
Sure.
as a little old kid, I'd crawl up there and lay up under the window and look out,
We always like to lay in the floor, except that hump got you in the kidneys.
Yeah. And,
Where the drive shaft runs under.
well, if somebody caught you doing that anymore, I guess you'd probably be headed to jail. But
I don't know, that's the judge.
you get to go visit the judge over here
That's right.
with your kids doing that
Well,
stuff.
just think about when we used to ride the back of a pickup truck.
Oh, yeah.
I was at my grandparents' one time in Poplar Bluff, Missouri. We had to run down to Neelyville, 17 miles south. So my dad's uncle was there, and he had at that time, about a 70, 71 GMC. So, kids, just get in the back, ride with us. So we hopped in the back of the truck, down 67, looked over in the back glass. He's running 75 miles an hour. We're going down US 67 at 75 miles an hour. We're in the back of a 71 GMC.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's the way it was.
That's how it was.
That's the way it was. I've rode, when I was a kid playing Little League Baseball, my dad would take
Sure.
me and some of my buddies that were playing on the same team, and he would pick them up, and we always rode in the back. And Lord, we'd be sitting on the sides of the bed,
Yeah.
We're not sitting down in the bed. We'd be sitting up on the sides, and we just having a hoot.
Yeah.
Knock on wood, as one of them deals. Nobody ever got hurt. Nothing happened. We didn't know any better,
Well, it's so good to have the government step in and keep us safe, right?
We did that stuff all the time.
All the time.
It was a joy to ride in the back of the
Oh, it
pickup
was a
truck.
blast. It was a blast. The only thing bad about being in southeast Missouri is getting the bugs hitting your face. Anyway, get back to these brakes. We got about 2 minutes before we go to break. No holidays this week. You're open all week, 8 to
Man,
5.
I think the next holiday for us is Thanksgiving.
Me
and,
too. Yeah.
Yeah, we've got plenty of time. We always do this. This is Fair Week, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
This is Fair
Yeah.
Week.
Wednesday's a parade.
Yep. Sometimes Fair Week's a little bit slow for us because
Right.
people's got other things to do. So if you've got something in your mind you'd like to get taken care of on your vehicle, give us a shout. This will be a good week to get it in, get it done, with very little scheduling issues. Like I say, typically Fair Week's a bit slow for us because
One thing I need to point out, let's say we're going out towards Walmart. We're going east on the business loop here. I'm at the speed limit of 35, 40 miles an hour, and I have to hit my brakes reasonably hard. Maybe a squirrel or a cat or something runs out, and I feel a little jerk in the front end. Idler arm, tie rod, idler, depending on the type of suspension. Question
it
mark.
could be a suspension issue, for sure.
But that's when it's time to get things checked.
Oh yeah, and you can also
Wheel
be
bearing will do
developing brake issues. You catch a caliper or a brake hose, say on the driver's side, that's holding some pressure on that rotor.
Yep.
And when you hit the brake, typically you'll feel a pull to the right.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be a suspension issue. It could be a brake component issue if you're feeling pull like that. Typically, that's a fairly easy thing to fix.
Yeah.
And we do them. We do a lot of brakes at the shop. I mean, a lot.
Well, now's the time to have that brake inspection before winter sets in.
Sure.
I mean, it's not that far off. We're going to be decorating for Christmas.
Yeah, it's not far. This is a good time of year right now. If you want to bring one in, we can check battery, we can check antifreeze, get your winterizing checks out of the way now.
Yeah.
Because in a month or so, when we get some of them first 30-degree nights or whatever,
Yep.
people are really going to pile in on us. So if you want to do it now, it's a great time.
Mike and the gang are there all week, 8 to 5, Monday through Friday this week. Give them a call, 425-3135. They're right across from Salvation Army on Highway 201 North in Mountain Home. It's time for the news. We'll be right back.